Hello everybody and welcome to Finding My Light, a podcast with me, your host, Catherine Ann Webster. Today's episode is called A Love Story, How I Found Yoga. So let me give you a bit of backstory, I guess you could call it. I wrote a book last year. Well, I wrote a book over the last few years and self-published it through Amazon last year, and it is called Finding My Light. If you want to read it, you can buy it on Amazon. Anyway, in this book, I wrote about how my journey into yoga was quite a slow one. I was in my early 20s and I had an ex-boyfriend took me to India. And I'd heard about yoga, of course, I'd heard about yoga. And he was very much into Ashtanga yoga. And he'd learned this form of yoga on a previous trip to India, which he'd done with his friend. They'd kind of built motorbikes and traveled around India, and he'd learned Ashtanga yoga on this trip. So when we went to India, I think he was assuming or hoping that it would be my turn to fall in love with yoga, but it wasn't. He would practice yoga, and I found it, I didn't get it. I mean, it looked good, it was impressive, but it didn't call me. However, when I was on the beaches in India, so in Goa, there were moments of quietness, stillness, silence, mostly on the walk home in the evening after dinner, and all the boats would be anchored on the shore, and there would be lots of Indian men just sleeping on the sand under the stars, or perhaps in the morning at sunrise. And there would be these moments where I could feel something. Had no idea what that was, and my young mind at that point probably couldn't think of any kind of word to describe that, but it was almost tangible. It was there, and it gave me a great sense of peace. I remember just feeling very happy on that particular trip. Anyway, I came back from India. That all disappeared. I was working at the time for InStyle magazine. I was into fashion. I was into celebrities. I was into, the fast pace of London. Completely forgot about my trip to India. And then me and my best friend we bought one of those around the world tickets, and we went around the world essentially. Anyway, after maybe 3/4 of the trip, we planted ourselves in Australia for a while. And the ex-boyfriend and her boyfriend at the time came to visit us. Now, we were driving down and we were nearly in Byron Bay, but we weren't quite in Byron Bay. I can't remember the name of the place where we hung out for a few days in a hostel. Anyway, it was raining, and the ex-boyfriend who liked yoga said to all three of us, "Come on, let me teach you some sun salutations." And everyone was like, "Yeah, okay." I don't know if you've done sun salutations before, especially in the Ashtanga tradition. They're quite dynamic. And I just remember shaking, hating it. Why on earth did I have to hold my body in these positions? Not that there's really any long holds in an Ashtanga sun salutation, but the Warrior One, down to Plank and Chaturanga, I just felt like my body was going to break, collapse. I just did not like it at all. So everyone else continued. I stopped. I was grumpy, and I went off and just went for a walk. So I did not like yoga. That's what I thought. So that was my second try at yoga. Really put me off even more. Anyway, fast forward a few years, I was then working at Elle magazine. I changed from IPC Media to Hearst Media publishing company, and I had a different boyfriend. I was in my 20s. You know what it's like when you're in your 20s, or generally just trying out things. And we were going back to Goa for New Year. And we went back to Goa, and that exact same feeling was there, like those moments of feeling something. Those moments of feeling like a sense of peace or belonging or light or love or possibility in my heart, which I'd never experienced before. And at the time, I was going through what I think was my Saturn return. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard about a Saturn return, but if you haven't, go and Google it or research it, because it's kind of like a point in your life when some kind of planetary movement happens. They say in your late 20s, early 30s, which I was, where you are like, oh, I've got to sort my life out. It's like, I've got to get things in order. I've got to. And I was having one of those. And mine was very painful, in fact. I mean, it was so strong. I would wake up. We had a beautiful flat in Highgate. Everything I'd always dreamed of, you know, this beautiful, like a Victorian townhouse flat in Highgate, looking over the heath. Yeah, it was just... But every single morning I would wake up, if I'd slept, because I often had insomnia because there was something just not right. I just could not settle. Dream job, dream house, no. My soul was saying, no way. So I would wake up and I'd be like, and I didn't know what was happening, but I could hear a voice, a sound, or whatever you want to call it inside me saying, you have got to change. This is not your path. This is not your life. This is not where you are supposed to be. Obviously, at the time, I had no idea what was going on. I just thought I was crazy or had a problem. So we went to India at this New Year, and I slept, and I didn't have this feeling of panic. Instead, I had this feeling. Now, it wasn't anything explosive. You're not ever looking for anything explosive. You're not looking for like these big, massive peak experiences. You're looking for steady feeling of feeling okay in your skin, of feeling like where you are in time and space is good enough. You're going in the right direction. And I felt like that. I felt like, okay, my skin, good enough. And I would wake up early every morning and I would watch the sunrise, and it would make me feel something magical. I didn't have a word for it. I did not have a word for it. Anyway, after that trip, I was sat around the Elle desk, and I think it was the editor at the time, she was saying, has anyone tried the Bikram yoga challenge? Let's just paraphrase it and say it was 30 days for 30 pounds. You had to go every day. And obviously it was January and everyone was trying something new. And I liked the sound of it because it sounded really hard. Even though I said before I didn't like hard yoga, I was at the time really into the gym, and I worked very hard in the gym. So this idea of being in a hot room, just the challenge, I guess. So me and two friends, my lovely friends, we're still great friends now actually, we met on Saturday morning in Primrose Hill. Now, Primrose Hill, if you've ever been, in my opinion, it's not only one of the most beautiful places in London, it's probably one of the most beautiful places in the world. That's my opinion. just the beautiful architecture, the feeling, the hill you can see all over the city. Yeah, it's just stunning. It really is. So, you know, we met in one of the most beautiful places in London, let's say, and it was a good start. It was a good start. And the studio is on the corner, so you come out of an underground station called Chalk Farm, and you walk over a little bridge, and there's a lovely studio on the corner. So we went in there, and everyone was really nice, and the receptionist was so nice. Now in London, people you can find people that aren't that nice because it's a big, massive city. But the receptionist was like, "Hi, so happy to have you, so happy you're signing up for the challenge." And the smell, I remember the smell, it was like a eucalyptus smell. It smelled so clean and beautiful. And the studio was lovely. It was kind of like antique-y, old London style, and the changing rooms were communal, and everyone in the changing room was nice and happy and friendly. And then in the actual yoga room, there was beautiful chandeliers hanging down. You could hear the sound of the trains chugging past between Camden, Hampstead, and yeah, it was just beautiful, and I just loved it. It felt like home, and I was like, I just want to come here all the time. And then the class began. I mean, the room was insanely hot, but I was one of those people that really liked the heat, maybe because I'm quite a cold person, so it felt really quite nice for me. I mean, it's hot, but I like that. I like it. I still like it. I'm not saying that it's good to do every day, because I think it dehydrates you because you sweat so much, but I did like the heat, and I do like the heat. Anyway, we started the class, and she basically said at the beginning of the class, you cannot leave the room and you cannot drink any water until I say. And I was like, wow, this is strict. But I was really happy to be told what to do. I was like, can someone just take me and tell me what to do so I don't feel this feeling of being completely lost and waking up every morning after not sleeping and just thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? So I was really happy with her strictness. And then the way she taught the class, not all yoga teachers are like this, especially not in other lineages, but she was she almost shouted the instructions. She countered, she just kind of made it really, and I was loving it because she was talking all the time, and I was listening to her instructions and then responding with my body. My mind had no opportunity to think about anything else, to think about all my problems or all my, you know, the future or the past or whatever. I was just there in this moment doing exactly what she told me, and I loved it. You know, there were no phones allowed. The class was 90 minutes. Didn't even remember I had a phone. Came out of the studio and I was like, what just happened? What just happened? I felt like someone had opened the door to my life, my future, my heart, love. I was like, I want to go there every single day. I could even cry now thinking about it, because it was the beginning of not my life, because every part of your life is your life, but it was the part of a good life, of love. Yeah, this is a love story I'm talking about. After the class, we went for breakfast in this cute little Russian cafe, and we had, I don't know if I had an omelette, because I used to have omelets for breakfast in India, so maybe that was kind of like reminding me of India, or I might have had a fruit salad, can't quite remember, but one of those things. And the other girls were not as taken as me. They enjoyed it, they were happy to do something healthy, but I was hooked. Now, I stopped going out, so I would make excuses because I wanted to get up for yoga in the morning. I started getting up at like 6 a.m. to go. I can't remember exactly the times, but I think it was a 7 a.m. yoga class. Finished at 8:30. I'd have to run out the studio, get on the underground, and get to Oxford Circus. And I think I had like 15 minutes, but I'd do it, and I'd just do it. Yeah, and everything started to change. So the whole thing about yoga is why does it make your whole life change? Well, here is what I think, but you have to obviously feel like you can maybe resonate with me or feel inspired, but of course your experience will be completely unique. For me, step one, I honestly think, was not looking at my phone for 90 minutes. That was so empowering for me. It was life-changing. How often do you feel like you're tied to your phone? I mean, I know some people just feel like it's almost a second part of who they are. And you can get so crazy about people replying, or you can be stalking people on social media, or it's just so toxic. So number one, no phone for 90 minutes. And when I'd finished my class, do you think I wanted to quickly look at my phone? No, I wanted to give another hour off the phone. It was just like, go away, phone. So that's basic, isn't it? And you don't even need to do yoga to do that, do you? You could start today and go for a long walk in nature and don't take your phone. You might not have a problem with the phone. I am much more detached from my phone now. I go moments in life, like months at a time, with no phone, and I bloody love it. Am I allowed to say bloody on a podcast? Hopefully. Yeah, so no phone. That was the first thing. So why was that so important? Okay, so I didn't know this at the time, but the whole point of yoga is yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So that's Sanskrit, and that's a yoga sutra, the second yoga sutra. Yoga is the stilling of the fluctuations of your mind. I will go into this more in another video. I'm not going to get too deep into philosophy yet, but let's just say that yoga was stilling the craziness in my mind. As I said before, I was so focused on my body, on the teacher. I was listening, I was responding to instructions that were making me reconnect with my body, not just part of my body, all of it. I had turned off the phone and I was internalizing into myself. And little did I know back then, when you do that, you begin to touch your innate nature. So I just told you about the second sutra of yoga, which is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. And then the third sutra, so it's basically like, what is yoga? Second sutra says, yoga is the stilling of your mind. Okay, why would we want to do that? Third sutra, you might want to do that because if you can still the fluctuations of your mind, you can touch your true self. What's your true self? According to the yoga tradition and all the authoritative texts and all the scriptures, your true self is love, joy, bliss. That's who you are. All the other stuff is part of either life, we're living in life school, or social conditioning, noise, but it's not you. You are a soul. You are a soul. And as I just previously said, my soul was not happy. My soul was not letting me sleep. My soul was making me wake up crying out for change. It was so, I was alarmed. Now, your Saturn return, if you have one, or if you have, you know, an ex's life crisis, might not be as profound as mine, but mine was big. And when I was in this yoga room, I was touching my soul, and my soul was saying to me, yes, yes, yes. It was so clear that there was that I didn't need to try. I just knew exactly what I needed to do. I needed to keep going to yoga. I needed to keep being in that room, and I needed to keep on this path. So the more I touched with my soul, the more my life began to move into alignment. What do I mean by that? So I was not living my life destiny. I was not living the life I believe God or the universe or whatever you want to call it had planned for me. I was living a life that maybe I thought I should live because it looked cool, let's say. But as soon as I was touching my heart, my soul began to bring the things to me that were in my destiny. Within a few weeks, I had split up with this boyfriend that was not right for me. He was a nice guy, but he was not right for me. I'd met my now husband, who I obviously didn't know at the time was going to be my husband. I'd become more likable at work, like everyone liked me more because I was emitting better energy, because I was in connection with my soul. I was earning more money, I was having more success, just everything. It was just a big snowball effect. And within a few months, I was pregnant with my first daughter, Bella. I'd been dreaming about having a daughter since I was a very little girl. I was pregnant with Bella, and the wheels were in motion for me to leave London and move to Spain and become a yogi. Even though, what is a yogi? So maybe to become a human who does yoga and tries to stay in connection with her soul. So it was just a love story. Now, don't get me wrong, every love story has this honeymoon effect, and then you've got to learn to adapt to one another, haven't you? The reality kicks in. And, you know, I'm going to go into how my yoga has changed over the years in other episodes. But what I will say to you, and how I want to close this first episode of Finding My Light with you, is finding your light is about finding that thing that can connect you with your soul. It's not outside of you. You need to get quiet. You need to turn off your phone. You need to listen to yourself. You can only really be authentic and true to yourself if you can listen to yourself. You can listen to yourself only when you are quiet. So the question remains, what are you doing to get quiet? What are you doing to reconnect with your body? What are you doing to reconnect with your heart? My personal opinion is other forms of exercise might clear your head. However, yoga is an ancient science that is designed specifically, which I'll go into in lots more detail throughout this podcast, to work with the different layers of your being. You are not just a physical body. There are lots more layers to yourself. So yoga systematically will work through those layers to get to where you need to go. If you don't already have a yoga practice, please, my recommendation would be to find one. Remember, my love for yoga didn't come instantly. It took a few years. So if you think I hate yoga, fine, think that, I did. please try again. There's something out there for everybody, really there is. And secondly, if your yoga is if you're already doing yoga and your yoga is not changing your life, I'm serious here, you need to change your approach to it. Maybe you are doing yoga just from a superficial point of view, so you're only focusing on the physical. If it's not changing your life at this moment in time, change the way you are practicing. Maybe seek out a different teacher, or maybe seek out a different style. If you're only practicing online, okay, can you find a different online class with a more spiritual teacher? You've got to find what touches your heart. You've got to find what gets you in connection with your soul. It's a journey. You don't need to get it all right straight away. I think it took me probably 6 years to get the aha moment. So let that soothe you if you're not quite there yet. But finding my light starts here, guys. So the question is, have you found that practice that connects you with your soul? I am going to close here, and I am looking forward to really diving into all the different aspects and elements of yoga philosophy, and how we can use it to not only find our light, but also share that light with the entire world, and to make a difference and to live with joy. I am sending you all my love. Have a lovely week, and I would love to hear your thoughts. If you have any questions, just send them to me via Instagram or email. Love, your host, Catherine Ann Webster.